Welcome everybody. First of all, to this super conference. We've had a great series of days, some great panels that have been presenting. Hopefully everybody's signed up for the next several days of that. It's a lot of fun. Obviously, I think we'd all love to be together and doing it in person, but we're really lucky today to have three folks with us on this innovation panel. Who are going to be talking a little bit about what their firm has done from an innovation standpoint during this period of time. Sarah Badten is of counsel with Ally Law's Alaska member, Birch Horton, and concentrates her practice on community association and related matters. Marc Landis, of course, is managing partner of Ally Law's New York firm, Phillips Nizer, and chairs the firm's real estate practice and is the firm's official member of the International Council of Shopping Centers. And then batting cleanup, we've got Marty O'Hara from Muchellis, who is the co-chair of the Litigation Dispute Resolution Practice Group for Much in Chicago. And in addition to his client work, Marty is a prolific writer and has been a published author on a range of legal issues. We're excited to hear what they have to say with respect to innovation, and we're going to let Sarah kind of kick this off. So, Sarah?
Great, thanks, Paul. I'm so happy to be here. It's so great to see faces. So many of you I met in India, and now we're at home, but at least we're doing this. So thanks again. And again, I'm from Birch, Horton, Bittner, and Giroux. We are a mid-sized law firm in Anchorage, Alaska. And what I'm very excited to talk about today is something that my firm took a leap of faith on. And because we are so small and mid-sized, I know that a lot of the larger firms have a full marketing team. We didn't have that. When I first came to Birch Horton about 3.5 years ago, they were just putting together a marketing committee to come up with ideas about, okay, we know we should be marketing, but what are we going to do and how are we going to do it? So they put this team together and I was asked to be on it. And over the course of 3 years, we had lots of great ideas. There were events we wanted to go to, speaking things that we wanted to send attorneys to, social media things, and your basic marketing events and ways of getting your name and staying relevant. And what we found over 3 years was that we were not very good at it. We had lots of good ideas, but we couldn't ever get things done. At the end of the year, we would meet and say, what did we do this year? And it was disappointing that what the cause of it was that we are attorneys and we were busy practicing law. And so while we had these great ideas, nobody had the time or was prioritizing that time to actually execute and get things done. And it just so happened that it was about March, February, right before this pandemic hit, I had someone I had met who had become a friend was starting to open her own company where she was consulting for marketing. And what she decided to do was sell her time in certain packages. So, you could buy a portion of her time and not commit to hiring her as an employee or even a half-time employee. You could buy just certain hours of her time. And so I talked with our executive team and convinced them that we should give this a shot. What do we have to lose? We haven't been successful with our marketing trying to do it ourselves. So we really didn't have anything to lose. And the money that it cost to buy some hours of her time was going to be money well spent. And I am very happy to say that it was, and we're so happy. I can't believe the number of items that she has been able to accomplish in a very short time. And then of course, right after we hire her, this pandemic hits. And it changed from, okay, here we had all these, philanthropic and events that we were going to attend and speaking so that we were going to give. And then it became, okay, well, now we've got to switch. So she now became a master of Zoom and getting us all up on being able to do Zoom and, being able to still continue with marketing in this pandemic. And one of the things that she wanted to do was not only look at the firm marketing, but also how individuals were marketing. And so she got into our website, which is where most people, when they need an attorney, the first thing they're going to do is go to the internet. And we were very embarrassed, and I'm embarrassed to admit this here, but I want to be honest, because our firm found out through somebody else, our new hire marketing director, that our website was not SEO. We thought that we had redone our website probably just a few years before this. So here we are thinking that we're kind of top of the line, cutting edge with this new website we had built, and only to have a marketing person come in and do a couple Google search and ask, why isn't this coming up, to find out that our back end was not search engine optimized. So that was very disappointing for our executive team to find out and hear. And but the good news is now that they know that, our marketing director is working on launching a brand new website. We'll have very similar content, but we'll have all of the SEO back-end content. We're using Thomas Reuters for that. And as you know, Thomas Reuters works a lot with law firms. So we know that that's going to be a very successful product once that's launched. But that is happening next month. So we're very excited about that. But again, it's one of those things where you think you're doing the right things, and it takes a non-lawyer to come in who knows what they're doing, because marketing is their business, to do a couple of checks to find out that that's not correct, and is now getting us on the right path. So we're very excited about that. And one other thing that we always had wanted to do, and we're never very successful at it, was to have a good social media presence. So we are in Alaska. We have a lot of weird, fun things that happen here. And we wanted, people to take pictures at these events and then post them on Facebook. And Facebook was going to be this, yes, it's professional, but it's also a glimpse into some of the personal lives of the employees and clients. And it was all great ideas, but no one ever did it. We would say, hey, you went to that event last night. Did you take a picture? Oh, no, I didn't. And so it kind of just never happened, or it happened only once in a while. And we just didn't have a consistent social media presence. And so now this marketing director, she's like the firm mom. So she makes sure that you are attending these events, and then she shows up and takes your picture, or she'll text you and say, take your picture and send it to me right now. And then she can take that and do a push on Facebook or LinkedIn and keep that social media presence active and alive. So we're very excited about that. And she even started a personal injury series that went out on Facebook every Tuesday. It was Tip Tuesday. And she would talk to our personal injury attorneys and pose a question, and they would answer it. And it would be just a very short, and sweet question and answer that she would then post on Facebook. And that happened every Tuesday. And she did that for like 3 months, which was great. And we got a lot of feedback that people really liked that. And it spurred people to call and ask more questions to get more information. And the other thing that was really interesting that attorneys don't think to do is to do press releases. So here we have these great things going on within our firm, but nobody on the outside was being made aware of it. And so since she's come on board, we've had 4 or 5 press releases go out, and we're very excited about that because, as you know, it's all about keeping your name out there so that when people think of needing a law firm or a lawyer, they think of you. And even with, I know we were talking about the backgrounds, and Wendy had said in the earlier program that they're saying that we shouldn't have our backgrounds. Well, that may be true, but I'm very proud of my background because this is what my marketing director made for me specific for this Ally Law Conference, because I told her, oh, everybody's going to have a background. I need one. And I want one that shows, you know, spurs questions about Alaska. So she actually made me a couple of different ones, but this one's one of my favorites. But one thing that she noticed too when she came on board was that our quote unquote swag that we were sending out had, you can see this BHBC logo with the mountains in the corner. Well, we had that logo on items, like for example, we had gotten the Yeti mugs and had that engraved on the Yeti mugs, and we're handing that out as swag. And she said, this is beautiful. This is a great mug and people are going to be excited to have this, but nothing on here says you're a law firm. And we were like, oh, yeah. And even our old web address was birchhorton.com. She's like, well, you know what that is. And you know you're a law firm, and other lawyers in town know you're a law firm, but what about, you know, Aunt Susie on the street? That could be an accounting firm. It could be anything. So we were like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. And so you can see now we've gone to bhbc-law.com as our web address. And even as things like our email addresses were bhb.com, which they still are, but they're in the process of being changed to be bhbc.com. So that we just have some consistency across the board of what is our brand and what is our message. So again, these are things that you would think are so obvious, but we weren't paying attention because we were practicing law. And so I know I'm probably getting too far along. I have so many things I'd love to talk about, but one of the things I want to mention before I pass it on is that she came in and she found out that one of the newspapers was doing a best places to work questionnaire. And so she got on there and got everybody in our firm to do a submission for why Birch Horton was one of the best places to work. And we won. So now we were named best law firm in Alaska as one of the best places to work. And we are getting so much mileage out of that. It's been wonderful. And that's just, again, another thing that we didn't even cross our minds to even try. And now we can tell new recruits, clients, we're one of the best places to work. And we are. I love it here. I'm very excited. And one more thing. I don't know if you can see this. Oh, maybe this isn't going to work. Oh, I don't think that's going to work. Can you see that?
Yep.
So there was a poll for best attorney and I won. So they've been having fun with putting that out on the Facebook, and we might have rigged that voting process by having everyone in the firm vote for it. But again, we're just very excited. And I think that my takeaway for any medium-sized to small-size firms out there who do not have a marketing person, that I think it is worth your time and money to buy someone's time. And you don't have to hire a full-time person. You can, many marketing people are offering advice in chunks of time, and you can just buy a package. And we've seen so much improvement. It's been the innovation for us. And our 50-year anniversary is next year, and our marketing director is already working on how we're going to brand next year and put on some events and make it super fun. and we're going to have a specific 50-year logo that'll be done. So next year you can look for what our logo will be. It'll be different than this. It will be a 1-year only logo. And I just think that's really fun, and I'm excited to share that. So I guess we'll take questions at the end. So we'll pass it back to Paul.
Thank you, Sarah. Great stuff. We're going to kind of transition now from Alaska and that beautiful landscape behind you to an equally beautiful landscape in a different size city, and Marc Landis, the managing director of Phillips Nizer. Marc, take it away.
Thanks, Paul. Sarah, you should have reached out to the Ally Law Network. We could have helped stuff the ballot box, run up those numbers even greater. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or if you're in Western Europe, why are you here? I'm going to be impolite for a moment and invite everybody who is camera off to consider going camera on. It's much nicer to see everybody's faces. If you're doing something that you can't show us on camera, that's okay. No Jeffrey Toobin incidents required here, but we'd love to see you smiling back. Innovation. The important thing about innovation is that it cannot be viewed as a one-shot. We innovated this month, that's it, we're covered for the year, we're covered for the decade. Innovation is a constant process of looking at what you're doing, figuring out how you can do it better, and that often means differently. Sometimes it means looking at refining what you're already doing. Doing things differently by itself is not enough. You have to approach these questions with some forethought and some planning and some care. And I want to talk about 3 areas where we have gone through significant change as a result of innovation efforts over the last few years at Phillips Nizer. The first one is a topic that Sarah also touched on. We refer to it as professional leadership, or the C-suite. And our old model of leadership, the law firm was managed by lawyers. And we all know what lawyers are like as business people. A few of them are, a batch of them think they are, some are trying to be, and a lot of them are in the category of leave me alone, let me do my work. Yeah, somebody will send out those bills and we'll get paid eventually. So leaving it all to attorney management, even the most well-intentioned attorney management in the world, even an attorney who becomes a full-time manager but doesn't have the managerial and leadership skills to advance the firm, is not a way to run a law firm. Management is more than counting your resources and making sure you get the paychecks out on time and that you have enough packages of toner. It means investment. And we wanted and needed to invest in our people and in our systems and our other resources. And in order to do that, we had to invest in bringing the right kind of people on board to help us do that. Our first of these moves was adding a chief operating officer. Our model used to be that the managing partner, according to our partnership agreement, my job is to be both the CEO and the COO. And, for my first term, I said, that's clearly not going to work because I also have clients. And while I delegate as much as I can to other attorneys so I can bring in more work, they still expect to hear from me from time to time. And I can't spend 1,800 hours managing a law firm if I'm spending 1,500 hours practicing law. So adding a chief operating officer with responsibility over all of our non-legal operations, to professionalize our finance and accounting operation, was a big piece of that. And it was a big move from having somebody who is purely a controller who only did numbers, but didn't get involved in running the firm. There's a difference between being a manager administrator and being a leader. And we now have a COO, Bill Matchke, who's a leader. We added a chief information and chief information security officer, Pat Lopez, to our team. He came in after his predecessor, who was very capable, retired and rode off into the southwestern U.S. sunset. Decided to leave New York behind for warmer climes. But we knew that we needed an operation that would continue to grow with the firm, and found somebody who had the right kind of law firm experience, both inside firms and outside as a consultant, to have seen most of the things that can go wrong and seen what a lot of other people did to make sure they did things right. So, I can count on Pat to push me every 2 weeks on something that we haven't done yet. And maybe it won't be the right time to do it, but he takes the same approach, always thinking. Then we added a chief business development officer. And Jessica's on the line now. I didn't know for sure if she was going to be here. So, she'll probably tone down the compliments, or she'll hit me up for a year-end raise. She may anyway. But, our former marketing coordinator, to put it politely, was the former secretary to her predecessor. Took over with 6 months of experience being around somebody who did marketing, kind of tried to help, got frustrated when attorneys were not responsive. And I knew that the time was beyond when we needed to make a change, when she was invited to participate in an ally law program for the marketing professionals, and she declined. She didn't even check with me before declining. She just said, "Oh, why bother?" So we moved into our future and brought in Jessica, who had real law firm experience. And she is more than a business development person. She is also an all-around cheerleader for the firm. She brings a strategic sense to what she does. I mean, I tell all of our recruits, you'll be lucky that we have a business development officer who's going to help you write and improve your business plan and then make sure you stick to it. But there's so much more that she does for us in all those areas. And then we added a chief talent officer, as our former HR person also reached the point of retirement. And we brought in somebody who was capable not only of being an HR bean counter who kept track of how many days off everybody had. And by the way, we were still doing that on paper with pencils and pens, or occasionally on a spreadsheet. Needless to say, in Alexis's first 6 months on the job, we committed to getting a HRIS system in place so we could professionally manage our staff. She had a background not just in managing non-legal staff, but also in working with recruitment of legal personnel. So now I have a point person to bounce things off of when we're dealing with professional recruiters. And she has taken the lead, working closely with Jessica on onboarding our new talent. Putting this team in place has made a big difference. A few years ago, when I had to break the news to a real estate broker that the deal that we were about to sign to move into new space wasn't happening because my partners had changed their mind. And I went to him and I said, "I'm sorry, you know how things are in a business sometimes." And he said, "You don't have a business, you have a law firm." And I was committed to making sure that as a law firm, we would also be a functioning business. And we are now, and there are, of course, more things we can do in that realm, but we're going to, we have the base now to do what we need to. Second area we've been investing in is diversity. And this is not a 2020 innovation for us. When I came in as managing partner about 6 years ago, the firm's equity partners consisted of 13 white men, which is not to say that there had not been any female equity partners. There just weren't any at that time. I could call them older white men to be even more accurate. I was the youngest of the group. And this was 8 years ago, 9 years ago, when I came as an equity partner. I think there was close to a decade difference between me and the next youngest equity partner. That is not a strategy for law firm survival. So we have invested successfully in the last few years in expanding our equity partnership, bringing in younger people, bringing in people who expand in the things we're good at and who have practices that are compatible with and lend themselves to cross-marketing with what we do and what they do. But another important part of this was, both from within and without, is expanding who our owners are. We no longer have 13 equity partners. We now have 24. And of those 24 partners, I think we have 7 female partners. We have 1 partner of color, 2 who are members of the LGBTQ community. And that's going to continue to evolve. We don't limit ourselves to only hiring people from categories where we haven't hired before, but we're cognizant of the fact that the world has changed, that New York City is an even more diverse place than most of the rest of the world, and our leadership needs to reflect that, and our attorneys need to reflect that, not just our administrative and support staff. And I'm not throwing around numbers about our associates in our council. We're already pretty diverse there, and we've continued to expand that as well. But I think the change in the equity ranks has been the greatest. We recently formed a committee, which Jessica is acting as point person for, and we have focused the committee. We're not just using the word diversity now, we're using READY, racial equality, diversity, and inclusion. Because in this climate, while I'm not discounting other categories of diversity, racial diversity and addressing the needs of having a more diverse front is first and foremost for us a challenge of addressing issues of race within our firm, within the justice system, within society as a whole. The third area I want to make a mention of is technology. And with all kinds of technology, we've tried to take a very thoughtful and intentional approach. And then, of course, some of those plans have been upended by a pandemic. So last year, when we were getting ready to select new computers for our technology upgrade, Pat Lopez said, shouldn't we be getting people laptops so they can carry their laptops back and forth, and they'll use them to log in, and they won't have to use Citrix anymore. They'll have a VPN network directly from the machine. I said, it's a great idea, but I'm not sure whether people are prepared to carry them back and forth. So let's start surveying people and find out how they feel about it. And once people heard that we were looking at this not as desktop plus laptop, but that if their preference was a laptop, they'd be carrying it around. Well, our headquarters is in Manhattan. Most people don't drive to work. And some people, I'm sure, would be fine carrying a laptop in a bag or a backpack on the subway or on Metro North Railroad, but most people weren't. So we went away from that model. A choice that we regretted when in March our new computers started arriving. They were shipped from Wuhan, so it took us a little while before we began to open the boxes, but they were all desktops. I am pleased that through intensive negotiations with our supplier and a restocking fee that's more than I wanted it to be, but enough that it was justified, we have successfully agreed to exchange some of the desktops for laptops to match up with the increasing appetite for the laptops. But more importantly is our focus on our use of video technology. Yes, we're on Zoom now, and everybody was using Skype a little bit before that, especially when dealing in the international realm. The good news was that we weren't new to Zoom when the pandemic hit, but we also understood that technology is not just about what is convenient for us. It's about meeting our clients where they are. So if a client is good with Zoom, we're on Zoom. But if our client prefers to be on Microsoft Teams, we're there. And if a client is using Google Hangouts, we're in Google Hangouts. The point is that we have to make sure that we're focused on serving the client and serving the client's needs. It's not just technology because it's fun or it's neat or it's convenient. It has to have a purpose. What I most like, though, is the fact that we've been able to do so much with the technology internally as well. We are having departmental meetings on a more regular basis than we used to. Well, some departments were good at doing it every month. Mine was not one of them until recently. And why? Because we are calendaring an event on Zoom to happen on the second Tuesday of every month at 12:30. bring your own lunch until someday when we're doing it in person. And that's how we're going to get people in a place to do that, where we're very focused on, we have an hour or we have 90 minutes. Let's make sure people are doing okay. Let's focus on what kind of business we need to talk about with one another. What do we need to communicate today? What do our colleagues need to know so that they can be better lawyers and serve their clients? But most importantly are the fun things. So our Chief Talent Officer runs our internal lunchroom. A couple of days a week, we have open lunchroom for any staff member who wants to come and hang out with their colleagues, since they don't get to see them in person. And we have weekly happy hours that Jessica takes the lead on. Sometimes they're just regular happy hours. Sometimes we have fun things thrown in, whether it's a visit to the animal farm, or recently we had a games and trivia night. But we've also gotten creative about using it for marketing as well. Of course, we're doing panel discussions and participating in our ally law programs and things like that. But we're getting together one-on-one or two-on-one or two-on-two with clients, sometimes even sending them a preferred bottle of wine or a bottle of scotch in advance, so that we know what they're drinking when they're meeting us for happy hour. And that can be a real catch up with the client, spend time about what's going on with their lives as well as what's going on with their business. And then we expanded that, and some of my colleagues have even organized wine tasting events where they have brought together alumni from former firms or other key client contacts, ask people to sign up in advance. The wine gets shipped to them, and then a professional sommelier leads them through an enjoyable wine tasting experience. So those are just a few examples of the kinds of things we're doing, and I'm happy to join in for questions at the end. Thank you, and back to Paul.
Marc, thank you. Great stuff. And you can send me a nice bottle of wine anytime you want to, and I'd be glad to get that. We're going to turn now to Marty O'Hara in Chicago with Much Cellist, and listen to a little bit about what Much is doing from an innovation standpoint. Marty?
Thanks, Paul. So one of the things that that Marc mentioned, and he's right, which is innovation doesn't happen for a particular month or for 30 days and then you move on. It's something that has to be dedicated to, and an idea that has to be bought in by the stakeholders and the shareholders really of your firm. For us, kind of where we're at now, in a way, started 7 years ago, when we were 7 years ago doing a 5-year plan, hired an outside consultant, and the outside consultant told us that a 100-lawyer firm in Chicago would not be in existence in 5 years, that we would be dead if it becomes the Chicago office of somebody, that we're too small to be mid-size and we're too big to be a boutique firm, just wouldn't exist. And we looked at that for a number of years. But as time was going on, as we were going through that plan, we successful. We continue to be more profitable than we'd ever been. So it didn't appear at that point that would make sense for us or something that we wanted. So as we went into our most recent 5-year plan, which is about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, we went in with an open mind, other than one thing. The one thing was we were going to stay independent. We were going to stay Much Cellist. We were not going to become the Chicago office of anybody else. But other than that, we went into it with an open mind of what do we want to be and how do we want to get there. And with that, to Sarah's point, we brought in an outside consultant, somebody to look at what we were doing, where do we want to go, and how to get there. And the first thing they said to us was, well, you need the answers to that question from two different groups of people. Outwardly, you need that answer from your clients, the clients who have been with you for a long time, clients who are newer clients, clients who were in the venture space, in the M&A space, in the litigation space. What do they say about Much Cellist? What do they like about it? And what do we need to do to continue to have their business and expand that? And then secondly, inwardly, was from our own stakeholders, from top to bottom, equity partners, income partners, associates, staff, everybody from top to bottom. What do they say about Much Cellist? Who are we? Who do we want to be? How do we get there? And so our outside consultants spent months just interviewing our clients and our own people to tell us, there were 10 or 12 of us on the committee putting together this 5-year plan. But so we had other people telling us what we were, who we were, and who we should be, and help us work that out. And through those interviews, we heard things and we learned things. And it's with that we made the decisions that we made. As an example, and it goes to one of the things Sarah said, our client said, we don't really know how to pronounce this word cellist. It was she-list. It came up time and time again, you know. And so part of what we did is we rebranded. We rebranded as Much. We didn't change our firm name. We're still Much Cellist PC as a corporate entity, but went through a rebranding process, changed our logo, changed our email, changed the look on our email, the logo on there to be Much, because that's in large part what our clients were telling us. The other thing that our clients were telling us is that one of the things they really liked about our firm was our culture when they got to interact with us. And internally, from our stakeholders standpoint, our stakeholders consistently would come back with the same message, that it was the culture at Much Cellist which brought them there, and it was the culture at Much Cellist which was keeping them there. And one thing Much Cellist has been great at over the years is getting great lateral talent to come over, and the lateral talent that comes over stays for long periods of time. And so one of the things that we endeavored to do was look at how do we take our culture, which is so good, and how do we introduce that and get our clients into our culture even more. And it just so happened at that time that we were a couple years out from our lease being up, and we're starting to look at space and whether we were going to move, are we going to stay? And we went around the city and looked at different spaces. We looked at law firm space. We looked at what accounting firms were doing. We looked at what consulting firms were doing, advertising firms. So we could see different space, not just law firm space, but what were other industries doing in the marketplace with their space, and try to make the most of it, both internally and for their clients. And what we came upon through this process was, and what we developed is what we call our hub. So what we built out was, we started with 3 floors. We actually went down to 2 floors by going to single size offices, all glass, very nice. And then really concentrated on our main floor, our conference room space that leads into the hub. And the hub is broken up kind of in a way with 2 sides. One side with tables and high top tables and tables for people to gather together, both internally at the firm for lunch and otherwise. And then on the other side with the pool table, ping pong table, dartboard, kegerator, wine shelf, wine rack for entertaining. And the big part of what we did when it came to the hub was, what is the technology that we need to have as part of this hub that will allow us on a going forward basis to use this space for giving seminars, for giving talks, for to doing podcasts, to doing whatever we need to do to reach our clients and get our message out there. So we had our IT people, again, look at spaces outside of law firm spaces, outside of what we would normally just look at if we were saying, what are we doing from an IT standpoint? Where do we want to be? And where do we need to be in the next number of years to make this successful? And ultimately, we ended up putting together a great space, which gives us the opportunity. We look at it to both use it for internal purposes. We've started what we call Much University, which is both a educational program for our own lawyers, and it's an opportunity for us to put on programs, educational programs for our clients as well. And we can do that in part with, hopefully after obviously post-pandemic, with people coming into our space, and for those that can't be in the space to participate in the program externally through the capabilities, the IT capabilities that we have. So we looked at this hub as a way to match our culture with our clients' culture and get our clients even more into Shellist. That also allowed us, this overall program allowed us to focus on a going forward basis also on certain growth enablers or growth areas that we looked at to invest in. Somebody had mentioned, we had a program earlier today, that cost cutting is never a strategy, which is correct, right? Revenue generating is a strategy. Cost cutting is not a strategy. But there are times where there can be cost savings in our sense, going from 3 floors to 2 floors, saving a significant amount of money in rent through that process, and then using that money to invest back into our firm. In part, picking spots where we thought over the next 5 years would be growth areas for us to build on with our clients. Greg Grove's on this call. One area that was chosen as one of our growing areas is Greg's venture capital blockchain group with emerging companies, an area we had invested in, the firm had invested in for a number of years and wanted to continue to invest in. Another area that we saw, which turned out to work out because of what's happening now in the pandemic, was we wanted to get a bigger insurance policy holder litigation group. And so we brought in somebody who was at Shop and Weiss, became part of Honigman, didn't want to be part of Honigman, wanted to be back at an independent firm, Jason Rosenthal, and we're able to bring him in, which the timing of that has worked out well. We have a number of clients that we've brought lawsuits on COVID related for coverage. And so those are we looked at it holistically as all of this kind of coming together. What are the areas we want to focus on going forward? How do we want to achieve that? And how do we want to get a better relationship and more continuity between us and our clients? And how can we use the space and the timing of us having to either re-up, move, or do whatever we're going to do from a space standpoint? And how do we use that space as a differentiator for us? And how do we use that space as a way to continue the relationships that we have with our clients? And so that was, as Paul said earlier today, more of it looking at it from on an ongoing 5-year growth plan, or a regularly at a regular interval, looking at where do you want to be over the next number of years. And where we ended up landing turned out to be a good spot without even knowing that the pandemic was coming. But what we ended up doing from a space standpoint has worked for us, and I think will continue to work for us going forward.
Marty, great stuff. Good information. To the extent that folks have questions, please feel free to go ahead and dump those into the chat. I'm going to start our group off with a couple of questions at least. One of the things that's a common theme here is that each one of you has looked to bring in outside support in connection with your innovation activities. And I'll kind of let each one of you kind of answer this, but often the concern is, how are people going to adopt somebody outside telling you how you should run, what you should do? And I know, Marty, you mentioned with your strategic plan the first time that didn't go so well. What were the hurdles that you faced in terms of taking an outside person and having them doing your marketing, or in Marc's standpoint, running the whole business, or Marty with yours, the strategic plan that you were going forward with?
I'll just start, but from our standpoint, I think, again, it was part of when we went through the process with this company growth play. We had them interview so many people within the firm, our stakeholders, that I think those people got comfortable with the people we were using because they were listened to. They felt a part of the process. And from our standpoint, it went so well that we hired one of the people from Growth Play, who is now ahead of our marketing. And so it was nice because she had that relationship with so many people in the firm when we brought her in. Growth Play wasn't real happy with us. But we're working that out. There'll be some economic, there'll be some trade-offs on that. One of them, I said I would use their name on this thing today, so I'll say Growth Play one more time. That's also buying us down some money that we owe them. But yeah, so that was that. So that kind of, again, I think the main point is it helped that have so many people in a firm be part of the process.
Sarah?
I'll jump in. I actually interviewed our marketing director before I came on here because I wanted to just see what her point of view was, since I was going to be talking about her for so much. And she said, I asked her what was one of the biggest challenges she's faced since coming on board with the law firm. We're her first law firm. And one of the things she said was the levels of willingness to participate, and that dealing with people who have different priorities. So she was saying that just, when you have 30 lawyers, everybody's going to have a different modus operandi, and that she really needed support from the management team to be empowered and to rein in some of the people who weren't on board with some of the marketing direction, and to try and get some more participation. But to her credit, she is a people professional, and so dealing with difficult personalities is something she does and does well, and more than most of us would. If we get a difficult personality, I think some of us tend to be more, well, that's too bad, this is what you got to do. And she sort of, she sways it and works it. And she works with people and gets what she needs, and she does it her way. And so it's one of the impressive things about her. But so, yeah, I think that different priorities and having top-down buy-in is very important.
Marc, you turned your whole firm over to a group of outsiders. How did that go?
Well, in order to do that, first we turned it over to a group of insiders. In order to make these moves, we also had to have buy-in. I mean, we didn't have a partner like Growth Play. Marty, if I say it, do you get some more money off?
Yes, I
But, we put in place a new team on our executive committee. Regina Fall, who's here now, leads our labor employment practice, is a member of that. Marc Elliott, who many of you know, who leads our litigation practice. And yes, they're part of that same younger generation. And don't misunderstand, we didn't throw out the older people. We have no mandatory retirement age. Louis Nizer worked till age 95, and we respect and support those things. But it was time to move out of the sleepy mode and into the, doing business the right way mode. There had to be a commitment at the senior level to make these decisions. Conversely, we did not rush into any of these hires. I think I probably interviewed at least 50 people for the position that Jessica now holds, maybe more. And I wasn't going to settle for, just somebody who seemed okay. It had to be somebody who was up for the challenge of knowing that there was a commitment to do this at the senior level of the partnership, but that didn't mean that everybody else understood what that meant. They weren't hostile, they weren't opposed, but they just didn't have a clue. So, there's indoctrination time involved, and there's a lot of time spent continuing to indoctrinate our attorneys to understand that we're doing things that are good for them. My next challenge is for our attorneys to understand that our firm's administrative assistants do not work for them, that they work for the firm, not for the individual partner, that they, that resource is a firm resource to be shared with multiple people, whoever needs it, and that therefore any professional challenges that come up are not in their hands, they're in the hands of our chief talent officer.
It's a great answer. In Meg, we may go just a few minutes over here just to follow up on this. Marty, coming back to you, I've been in several firms and been through the strategic planning process, and the bookcases at those firms are filled with glorious, lovely strategic plans that gather dust and never see the light of day. So what has much done to kind of move the ball forward with that plan? The space is one thing, because that's a fait accompli, that's what you've done, but the other aspects of the strategic plan, how are you moving those forward, and what are the next steps?
Well, part of it was a commitment that we also made, again, to get one more plug for Growth Play, but it was to keep them involved. It was not what we'd done in the past really with our consultant. Was if we brought on a consultant for that particular 5-year plan, they helped us put that together, and then they were, somewhat out. We made the commitment to stay with them, right? So that they stay with us, right? It was to Sarah's point, which is if you just gave it back to us, and we have to stay on top of it and do everything else we were going to do, we weren't going to do it. I mean, we knew that, right? So we have them, they've stayed on us and said, where are we, right? Let's have a meeting. Let's talk it through. I mean, we're literally meeting Thursday. Already have this meeting's been scheduled to stay on top of it. Cause you're right, Paul. Otherwise it just gets on the shelf, and here you could say, well, we got the space built out. We did what we want to do. Hooray for us. And we're done. But that was just one component of it. So it's really about sticking with it and using somebody other than ourselves to keep us on task and make sure we do. And that's been a big part of it, and continues to be.
Sarah, with your marketing director, kind of next steps for her and authority to get people who have different priorities in place? How do you do that? What are those next steps?
Oh, that's really interesting that you just asked that, because today an email came out that finally disbanded our marketing committee. So basically, we had been going to these monthly marketing meetings with our marketing director, and I think that was good for the few times that we did it while she's sort of ramping up and getting to know us. But we had a meeting with our managing partner, and we said the reasons we had the marketing committee are no longer valid because we have a marketing director now. So we shouldn't be attending meetings unless there is a purpose and a task associated with it. Otherwise, that's her job now, and she needs to go around and make sure that people are, doing their marketing objectives or whatever those may be. So yes, that's already in process. I think though that there is still some struggle with getting some buy-in by particular attorneys who, for whatever reason, are resistant to being told, suggestions for what they should be doing to market. That's nothing new. Marketing committee had those same struggles. It's just some people are into marketing and others don't want to do it. They just want to practice law and go home. So, but hopefully we will continue to support her and empower her, and people will see the results, and that will make them want to participate.
Marc, we're going to wrap up with you on the balance that I anticipate has to be struck between your new non-lawyer CEO and the legal strategic direction of the firm. Do you have a board of governors, so to speak, or a board of directors that your CEO answers to and is guided by? How does that work?
Well, we have our executive committee. So it's a 5-member committee. 4 are elected. Actually, we're 6 now. The managing partner serves 2-year terms. Everybody else serves a 1-year term. And so, I look to both our COO and the rest of the C-suite as well to report to and brief the executive committee formally at our meetings, in addition to keeping us up to date as things happen. I'm not a big fan of meetings. And if we're going to have meetings, I want them to have a purpose and an agenda and get business done there that needs to. Meetings are not ideal time for contemplating, maybe occasionally for brainstorming, but preferably you put your thoughts together in advance of a meeting, come in with an agenda, things that you can update people on in writing, put it in writing so you don't have to spend time saying it out loud to everybody. They can come and ask you questions.
Great. Well, thank you all three. I'm going to add just one plug because Marc, you and I think a lot alike in terms of sending a nice bottle of wine or sending a favorite beverage of that sort. If you've not found Drizzly as an app, you should go online and find it. It is same day, same afternoon delivery from a local liquor store of your favorite wine or favorite beverage, so that you're able to almost instantaneously say thank you when somebody does something nice. You're not waiting for a week or 10 days before that thank you gets to them. So look that up. It's a great resource. Hey, thanks everybody for this. Marty, Sarah, Marc, great information, great direction. Loved some of the ideas. I've got, I think, 3 pages of notes myself that I'm going to take back and share with my firm. Meg, anything that we need to do to close on up?
I don't think so. If you need a certificate of attendance, let me know. And yeah, thanks to all of our panelists and to you, Paul, for moderating.
Thank you much, everybody. Stay well, stay safe.
Thanks,
Sounds
Paul.
good. Take
Thank you.
care.
Take care, everybody.